Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. Look, I have to ask you, what is life in Rwanda like? Because what I've found quite amusing is people who probably couldn't put the place on a map, they couldn't pin Rwanda down on a map, suddenly thinking they're experts on the quality of life that faces people when they get to Rwanda. So I'd like to hear what you think that quality of life is.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on your show. I've been going to Rwanda actually since 2008. I was recently there in 2019. And residing in Rwanda, it doesn't follow really any of the extremes that are being discussed. It is in this, especially Kigali and the area where these refugees and migrants are being placed, is better comparable where they are coming from. But once again, this wasn't their intended location. They were coming to the United Kingdom.
Yes, no, exactly. And, well, I get all of that. That's fair enough. But, I mean, they were also coming to the United Kingdom illegally in a lot of senses, weren't they? Now, I spoke last week with a gentleman who's a journalist in Rwanda. So he lives in Rwanda. He's from Rwanda. He finds it very offensive what the likes of many people apparently on the left of this country are saying about his country. He was of the opinion anyway that a lot of people in Rwanda have direct first-hand experience of what it's like to be a refugee or to have to leave one's home country and then maybe return back one day. He also says the accommodation there for them, some Rwandans, the only thing that's annoying some Rwandans is that the accommodation for some of the asylum seekers might be better than the accommodation for, domestic Rwandans, as it were. Do you buy into that?
There is a lot of truth in that. One of the big, experiences that most Rwandans have had, or at least have known someone, usually within the family, is of being a refugee. Starting in 1959, all the way until even quite now, there are still some Rwandans who are refugees in the DRC, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is an after effect of the '94 genocide against the Tutsis. So for a lot of Rwandans, they have a very favorable view towards, refugees and migrants because they suffered horrific hardships when a lot were refugees in neighboring countries. And there are, every time Rwanda has held refugees within its borders, especially over the last 20 years, 15 years in particular, with refugees from Burundi. I believe there are 60,000 Burundians still in Rwanda. There are thousands. Just in 2013-14, there was over 100,000 Congolese refugees in Rwanda, where there is attention towards them, towards their needs, and towards rehabilitation, whether for them returning to their country or for them to try to make a life in Rwanda. So in times past, and I wouldn't be surprised now, based off what colleagues Rwandans are telling me about the standard of living, comparing it to their own standard of living, but that becomes somewhat second nature because of historical experiences, the identity factor that this is promoting, we are helping others, especially because we have this history of abandonment, whether during the genocide or before. And that they do see the overall foreign policy advantages that are part of this deal.
Yeah, I've found there's been quite a lot of hypocrisy. People have a short memory sometimes when it serves their own agenda. I'm looking at an article here from about exactly a year ago, and it's from the UNHCR, the UN's refugee body, and it's saying that the UN High Commissioner for Refugees was praising Rwanda just a year ago for offering life-saving haven to refugees. This is a UN article. And then suddenly people are acting like the UN has been for ages sort of wholeheartedly condemning Rwanda, and they think it's abhorrent that refugees are being sent to Rwanda, when the reality is they have a history of resettling refugees, which has been commended, not least by the UN itself in the past.
Very true. The Rwanda's relationship with the United Nations and its multiple organizations within it agencies is a complex history because of the failures of those agencies before 1994, and especially during the genocide against the Tutsis in 94. But the UN is very critical of Rwanda because of accusations of domestic human rights abuses, specifically the Rwanda's interference or engagements with neighboring Congo, with the Congo Wars, and how the UN still, in the UN Group of Experts reports, still accuses Rwanda and Uganda of interference in Eastern Congo.